Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? Welcome back to another episode, and today we get the privilege of sitting down with a young man, Elias Rivas. Elias, first of all, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
And thank you for being here, sir. Thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Absolutely. You know, I want to first off get a chance to get to know you, not just as a boxer, but as a person,
okay.
Right? I think it's important for people to understand your journey a little bit, because a lot of people only start paying attention to athletes when they reach the pinnacle of success or they get some success under their belts, right? And they don't get to see all the background work that goes into getting to a place of success.
Okay.
And so it's part of where I want to start off with, if we could. If you were to just tell audiences who have never heard of you before, never met you, who is Elias Rivas? How old are you and where are you from?
I'm 19 years old. I'm from Nampa, Idaho, what I like to call the train stop. Right, that's what the town originated as before we grew. And so whenever I fight or whenever I do stuff, you know, I like to put some recognition back in my hometown.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So roots are here, still planted here, still putting in work here, and trying to put your city on the map.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I see you putting in work here along with many other young fighters that have an opportunity to really kind of sharpen, hone their skills at this particular juncture of their life, but then getting ready to step into a bigger role, which you're going to be able to get into here in just a couple days, really, which we'll get into in 5 seconds of a flash. But before we jump into that and talking about you heading into nationals on the 9th, which, by the way, is not something every young fighter gets to do, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's a pretty big deal. And you've already put in your work. You've already earned your way to kind of these bigger rooms and these bigger stages. And so, you know, really I want to understand what that means to you to be able to get to a place where now you're stepping on a stage like that. How are you feeling days before going in there?
You know, I feel a little nervous, but not as much as some people think I will, just because I've been to this stage before. And the talent that I face is top of the line, top notch. You know, you can't take anything away from them. And so whenever I get in there, I feel like it's actually when I do my best work against another top level fighter.
Yeah. Where's Nationals, by the way?
Nationals this year is in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, okay. Yeah, I've been to Tulsa, but it's been a few years since I've been there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's cool that you're going to be over there in those stomping grounds. I know some people out there, and I'm sure there's a lot of buzz circulating around that. How does your family and friends, how are they feeling right now about you going to Nationals?
They took it very exciting.
Yeah.
After I won regionals, and that was a very tough fight, by the way. I would say I barely edged that fight. Won unanimous, but again, you know, that second and third round was very tough.
Yeah.
But my family and friends, right, they're all supportive of my actions.
Yeah.
And they're actually very excited that they get to announce that I would be traveling to Tulsa for Nationals.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, in boxing, it's often like that, right? It could be razor thin of a decision between you getting the nod and not getting the nod, right?
Right.
Where one round could be the differentiator between, you know, winning and not winning. And so that's awesome to see that you're learning and picking up lessons from that regional fight. What would you say is one of the biggest things that you took away from that regional bout as you're walking into this next stage?
Not to doubt, to believe in the Lord more, to do not be afraid, for He is here with us.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Right before I walked in, I had never messed up with mitts before, and that was the one time that I did. Yeah, my dad wanted to say something, but he didn't because he didn't want to ruin my composure.
Yeah.
But right afterwards, I stuck with it. I got in there, and after the first round, the nerves were gone.
Yeah. Wow. No, it's interesting you made that statement right there. I was literally 12 hours ago reading the book of Joshua, where he talks about being strong and courageous. I don't know if you've read that or not, but yeah, I'm inspired to hear that that's where your mentality is at right now, that you're learning how to get rid of doubt and step into an arena where you can say, hey, my training, my coaches, my discipline, my work ethic, my even way about you taking care of your body and how you eat probably, right, is pretty disciplined, I'm guessing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so all those things kind of converge and get you ready for a stage like this. What was it, by the way, that brought you to boxing to begin with? Because not everybody chooses the route to go get punched in the face and, you know, chase a career into it.
You know, it was actually kind of funny the way that I got brought in. It was more of a way to stay conditioned for soccer and football.
Okay.
But rather instead, my dad seen where my technique could lead. And so we started off at Napa at the Karcher Mall, and then we moved our way up to here. Went through 2 coaches before my dad actually started to coach me. And from there, I mean, my dad just, his experience and knowledge greatly bloomed.
Okay.
But I would say that it was just something to keep me in shape.
Yeah. Is your dad still coaching you?
Yes.
Okay. Is he here today?
Yeah, he's actually here today. Yes.
Okay, awesome. I might have him pop in here to give a word as well, because that's a pretty big thing to say that, you know, your pops has been with you from the beginning. He's helped mold you as a young man today, and he's still in your corner. He's still by your side. I think it says a lot about a father-son relationship and the importance of the father-son relationship as well. I kind of look at it, I'm a dad, I got 4 kids, and I look at it as you don't really ever stop being a dad or being a son. It's just the dynamics of the relationship change. So to see that he's been in your corner from the inception is pretty cool and pretty inspiring.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's awesome. You know, what were some of the fighters that you looked up to growing up, or some that you're currently kind of looking up to right now?
Oh, so currently, I mean, right now, a little bit of a change of focus. So after hearing Teofimo Lopez's story, you know, how he was a nerd on the USA team, and him just coming up, you know, that's kind of like what I relate to.
Okay.
You know? I guess, you know, some family friends are always saying, you know, you're kind of an airhead, Elias. But I mean, yeah, that may be true, but this is where I do my best work, is in the ring. Yeah.
Do you find boxing bringing out certain things about you that you didn't know were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I certainly say, like, calmness, you know, outside of boxing when I was a kid, you know, really bad problems with it. But coming to boxing when my dad is like, you need to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Because you have those moments where it's just, I can't breathe, right, as a kid. But then your dad just calms you down, relaxes you.
Yeah.
And you get back to it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's phenomenal. You know, as I'm thinking back to kind of how your day-to-day regimen might go, I know it's ramping up now probably, right, as you're getting geared and you're putting the finishing touches on things before you go out, but what does a typical week look like for you when you're training? Like, how do you start your day? Are you going 5 days a week, 7 days a week? Like, what does it normally look like for you?
So getting ready for fights, we're typically going 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. And, you know, the work week, I work 4 tens, which helps me a lot, right? That 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
So I can train harder on Friday and Saturday. But day-to-day life, 10-hour shifts, work at 6, get off at 4. And then right afterwards, I run about 30 minutes. Some days I run at a pace of 10 miles per hour just to get up there 4 miles. Or I just run at a pace of 8 and go full 30 or 36 minutes.
Nice. So what part of it are you enjoying the most right now?
I think right now the running.
Really?
I feel like that's the easiest and most relaxing part of my day.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not the most relaxing, but it's definitely that time I have to myself, besides work or the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, for some people, I guess it's different for everybody, right? Like, I used to despise running. I never considered it fun, but I know other people who, they do feel that way. They feel like there's a calming effect of running and able to clear your mind, able to kind of focus.
Yeah.
I could see how you,
that would, you know, you throw on those headphones and you just go on forever.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what's up. What has boxing taught you about kind of the pressure, not just of being in the ring per se, but when I think of people that are fighting, there's a lot of parallels between the ring and life in general. And I know you're young, but if you were to make a parallel between what you're learning about the pressures of boxing and life itself, what would you say you're pulling from that and how you applying it?
Pressure. So I guess one thing I can do is at work, sometimes I'll care what other people think, and sometimes in boxing I'll care what other people think. And I guess that's like a big pressure point on a lot of people, right? The whole idea of forgetting what other people think about you, I think, is the best idea. A very good ideology to add to yourself. It's something that I've had trouble with the past few months.
Sure.
As maturing. I don't want to be, you know, the 18, 19-year-old who's like, oh, you know, like, what are you going to do with your life, you know, because sometimes we hit those dips, and people see that. And so I try my best to not care what other people think and work my absolute hardest.
Yeah. So I kind of see you're at a stage in your life where you're dialing in on your identity and not so much worrying about what other people are saying that it's supposed to be, but you walking it out and figuring it out as you're putting in the work right now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's cool.
The idea of boxing, right, is it's more than just a sport. You don't just play boxing. You do boxing, right? It's a lifestyle.
Yep, I've heard that analogy. You don't play boxing.
Yeah.
You can't play boxing, right? That's awesome. Earlier you were talking about doubt, and oftentimes I think doubt may come as a result of taking a loss in life, right? Somewhere down the road, or maybe even in the ring itself. what has taking a loss taught you? What's one of the biggest takeaways you've taken away from taking a loss?
So to instead of saying taking a loss, right, take away the 3 other letters, right, you got the L. Change that L into a lesson.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's what I take away from each fight or each loss, essentially, is that it's always taught me something in one way, shape, or form.
That's awesome. Yeah, that so much reminds me of an interview I did with somebody a couple weeks back, MMA fighter, and they were speaking of something very similarly philosophically of how they look at taking a loss, and I was so inspired by the way that they framed it up, much like what you just said right now, and they actually applied a lot of what they said into the ring that week and came back with the dub after that. And so it was pretty cool to kind of see them in action, living that out. I'm expecting the same for you as you walk into it. A minute ago you talked about your dad, talked about your pops, been in your corner from inception. Who else has been instrumental in your life up to this point in forming not just you as a boxer, but as a young man?
I would say my brother. I remember this saying I told to an old wrestling coach. He told me that my brother would follow my footsteps. And my response to him was, no, he's not. He's going to be his own person. He's going to do his own thing. Well, I was sadly mistaken. My brother did follow in some footsteps. And so when I finally did start taking the right steps in the right direction, my brother had followed. And so essentially the idea is that my brother followed me when I started doing good in life. And so what does good involve, right? I mean, just staying away from the bad things, right? You know, I guess as a teenager, the bad stuff that other teenagers do, right?
Sure.
And so quit essentially all of that when I turned 18, and then just started building myself and building my life.
Yeah.
Building a career.
Yeah. So how does your friends perceive that now that they see you seriously pursuing something? Has it created some rifts? Has it created some questioning within you? Like, what has that experience been?
I guess it had to be more of me, not necessarily cutting them out, but just slowly stop talking. There are a few friends I would like to reach out to, right? Because they still hold the same morals and ideals that I do.
Yeah.
But essentially, I only have one friend. I consider him to be family, actually. So, but during my upcoming, right, when I turned 18, when they were still around, they were still proud of me, you know, for trying something.
Sure. Yeah. I think it kind of goes with the adage of anybody really chasing greatness. You know, you probably heard the adage, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes you find yourself in seasons of that. It doesn't always stay that way, but eventually you find people that want to reach the top with you, right?
Correct.
Or even if it's in an ancillary lane or an opposite industry of sorts, you find people that carry that spirit of excellence with them, and they're willing to do the hard things. They're willing to take the hard decisions of cutting negativity out of their life, or people even out of their lives if it's a distraction. So props to you for being able to do that at 19 years old, because I know I wasn't when I was 19 years old.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's kind of keep going on this talk with nationals, because I see you're rocking the belt first of all right here for, you know, Rocky Mountain Golden Gloves. This is the belt you've been rocking here recently. Earned the right to carry that, right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that feels pretty good. But walking into, you know, nationals, is this your first time going for nationals, by the way?
For Golden Gloves.
For Golden Gloves.
Yeah, I've been to other nationals, such as the National Silver Gloves,
Okay.
or the national tournament known as the Junior Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Both advancing tournaments, state, regionals, nationals.
Yeah.
And those are the tournaments I like most, because towards the end, you know, it's the best of the best.
Yeah.
They won their state, they won their region. They're
Yeah.
there for a reason.
Yeah. Do you have an idea? Well, let me back it up and say this. Everybody's a little bit different when they're prepping for fights, and I have to imagine maybe you've seen some of the roster of people that are going to be there. Are you one of those guys that likes to scope out the competition, or are you kind of trusting in your training regimen to do the job for you?
More trusting into my training regimen.
Yeah.
My dad is the one who usually scopes them out.
Okay.
Kind of tells me like what to do.
Yeah.
But I don't like to watch videos of these fighters. More or less, I like to adapt while I'm fighting.
Yeah, okay. And so you kind of rely on your coach to do the coaching, and you go in there and you execute on what he's coaching you to do.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's when you see people or hear about people that may potentially be checking you out and watching you fight, whether it's for this upcoming event or afterwards, like, how would you describe your boxing style, or kind kind of how you've evolved as a fighter, if you would, up to this point.
So coming back, so essentially, real quick, I took a 2-year break from 16 to 18.
Okay.
Came back when I was 18 and a half. And so right now, my focus is being more aggressive, being more of the combination puncher while moving forward, angling, and staying in the pocket.
Yeah.
But sometimes I will get into that mode of where I want to throw 1-2 and stay out. So it's a fine line. My style is to fight aggressively, but as of lately I've been fighting as a counter puncher.
Okay. Is that something you just kind of naturally progressed into, or was it something?
Because when I was a kid, I was always the aggressive fighter, just nonstop going forward. And that's what would shut a lot of people down. I think I kind of get in my own mind about being so aggressive.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm looking for that counter, but sometimes that counter never comes. And so that's what stops me from being the entire aggressive fighter. And that's why I lay back a little bit.
Yeah. So at this point, knowing that that's the case, and making the adjustments you've made up to this point, what makes you a problem for certain fighters? Like, what is it about you that makes you a problem for some?
For set fighters, they typically wait for you.
Yep.
They throw 2 to 3 punches as fast as they can, and they get out right away. And it takes them a few seconds to regain their composure. So they step back, wait for you, hands back up. So that little second that they have to put their hands back up, that'll be the problem for them, because that'll be when I come back in.
Yep. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. You're really putting some paint to the canvas here when we talk about the sweet science and it being actually a thinking man's sport too.
Yes, sir.
Right? You actually have to
it's definitely playing chess.
Yeah, it's playing chess. That's awesome. When you're in the locker room or right before a fight, what's going on in your mind? What's going on in your camp, in your corner, with the people that you're with? What are you guys doing as you're getting ready to head out?
Essentially, a blank slate with music. I like to put on my headphones, while my dad wraps my hands, and afterwards just hit that really deep stretch and just think about my movements in my head after. And so, going from a blank slate to then realizing like what moves I want to hit, what moves I want to use, how I can utilize, everything that I've worked with. And so essentially it's just getting ready for that moment.
Yeah.
Me and my dad, we have good conversations. We a little bit philosophy, a little bit more Bible verses, and that helps me a lot.
Yeah. So what do you typically bumping in your headphones?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that sounds good, but typically like old school R&B, or not necessarily new rap, but I pickpocket a little bit of the new rap.
Yeah. So when you say old school R&B, when I think of old school R&B, the R&B I grew up with was like Jodeci or John B. Like, what are you referring to when you say old school R&B?
So maybe I got my genre a little bit mixed up, but maybe like Tupac or Biggie, or a little bit of Ice Cube. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Hit 'Em Up will definitely get you amped up right before you head out to a fight, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I feel you, man. If you were to sit down from a year from now and look back at the young man that you are today, but with a year back window, looking in retrospect, I guess you could say, what would you tell your younger self as a learning lesson or as a heads up about where you are right now?
Don't be afraid to succeed, even if you fail. Right? A lot of people, they fail and they quit, which is a big problem I ran into when I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Last year, let's see, we're in May right now. Right around this time is when I quit my first job.
Okay.
Hitting a little bit of a rough patch. I had stopped boxing once again. That break only lasted 6 months. But when I stopped boxing, I felt the stress of everything around me. And I guess I chose work over boxing. But in that moment, I think I would have told him to keep with it. It all kind of started with, a butt kicking I got from sparring, right? That failure moment that made me quit.
Yeah.
So I tell him to keep going.
Yeah. So you would tell yourself that. What would you tell somebody else that's 15 years old, stepping into the ring for the first time, or thinking about lacing on some gloves because they don't know what to do with themselves, or maybe they're trying to get their head on straight because they've been tired of doing all the old stuff that everybody else is doing and they're considering changing lanes?
I would tell them, don't be afraid to take that L and to change it from a loss into a lesson. I would tell them, kind of like do your research about different people, right? The greats, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Vasily Lomachenko, they all lost at one point in their life, but it turned them into who they are now.
Absolutely.
And so I would say the same thing about myself. From 16 to 18, you know, kind of got into that wild world, and then I boxed again, and then I quit, and I came back. And so essentially just don't be afraid to fail. Failure is the best teacher, after all.
Well, when you think about getting to the next stage after this, I mean, I don't want to get you too far thinking into the future, but you know, you're heading into this next stage. Like, how far do you want to take it at this stage of your life? Like,
As far as amateurs go, this tournament will be to see how I do against all these top-notch fighters.
yeah,
And if I do decent to okay, what I would like to do is go to another national tournament in December,
Okay.
which is another qualifying.
Yeah.
It would be the National USA Boxing Tournament. I think that's the name of it, but that's their biggest tournament, because after that you become a part of Team USA.
gotcha. Okay.
And so essentially this tournament is a milestone for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I do good,
Yeah,
then I kind of want to see if I can go pro or not.
yeah.
Just want to get that feel of heading into that top-notch competition.
That's awesome. So, well, it sounds like you got a good team around you. It sounds like you got good people that are watching, looking out for you, that are trying to navigate your career in the right direction and helping you take the proper steps in that. So, that's phenomenal. I'm looking forward to those next steps. Ultimately, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, or kind of alluded to it, with boxing being what it is, and it's more than just a sport. What do you want people to think about when they hear or get to know Elias Rivas? What do you want them to be left with about who you are as a man?
More humble. I like to get in there and take care of business. I'm not the type of guy to walk around the gym with the shirt off, right? Not to flex or post a whole lot. That's just not me.
Yeah.
I kind of like other people to do the bragging for me. So essentially my dad or my best friend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They kind of like to say like, oh, Elias Rivas, you know, that's my best friend, or that's my son.
Yeah.
And I'd like them to talk about me instead of me talking about myself.
Yeah. Love that. Elias, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.